In the area of software, Mr. Narayan has handled a variety of issues, including the protection of software in India, the contracts, introduction to new licensing models. Prior to joining the firm, Mr. Narayan was practicing as an intellectual property lawyer in the United States and has drafted and negotiated intellectual property licensing and cross-border licensing agreements. He was also involved in several patent litigation matters in the US. Interestingly, he holds a bachelor's degree in physics from St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi, Law College from University of London, and master's degree in law from Cornell Law School. So I think he's a true ambassador of the saying that good, better, best, never let it rest until a good is better and better is best. So we are sure we'll have able to have better than best experience of his radical and interesting views on the topic. So we
I request our President, Mr. Avinash Lalwani, to offer a memento to our learned speaker, we have to carry out the law of God. And you know, in any RRC, the faculties are most important, but I always believe the group leaders are the pillars of the RRC. RRC entire concept is evolving around the group leading. And this time, two things I have noticed, Rajiv. I will appreciate, indirectly, team. Every participant is very happy that our papers have come so much in the time. One can do the PhD on the subject. That is a great achievement as far as our local team is concerned.
Sir, you are missing one thing, that all the paper writers were kind enough to send the paper 1 month in advance.
Sir, it is your follow-up. Otherwise, no. So, now I will request all the people, the group leaders, to come to the dais. And I will request Mr. Narayan to felicitate them with a memento. The first one is Mr. Virendra Porwal, and I had the occasion to meet his group. Fantastic group meeting. Miss Rishi Dalal, only lady group leader in the entire conference. Come Rishi, please. And my neighbor, Mandar Telak. I heartily, acknowledge the contribution, and I thank all our mentors, Bhavin Bhai Mehta, Vasant Bhatt, Bharat Bhai, our Bhai Sirlani, and our senior most participant, Asbur Bhai Kanda. With this, I request our learned faculty to start this session, and with request of everyone to have the bound right that we decided in advance.
Respected faculty and people on the dais, and friends and foes, if I may say so. Usually a very hard act after the nice introduction. Because the expectation is created very, very high. And it's very difficult thereafter to achieve it, especially after we so poetically describe what I am supposed to do, and certainly not achieve whatever was said of that, and still much to do. Also, after people who caused me trouble for the last 1 hour, to give them gifts in the form of group leaders. So, really, it's a good way to start the program, right? People who cause the maximum problem first present, give presents to them, and then we start the session. And Naresh has nicely put me in a delicate spot because being a litigator, I only argue well when people ask me questions. And now he said, nobody will ask me any questions. But the good thing that he said was, he did not stop me from posing questions to you. So he cannot now add because he only said that you cannot ask me any questions. Therefore, I am foolproof, but that does not spare any of you. Correct? Certainly not. And Krishnan sir is also here. Therefore, now I have to be very careful. I hope.
We cannot answer because they say conference, we cannot answer.
Good. So already you go to the mountain. Okay. I hope the questions are easy. At least one group was able to get through all the questions, which is very impressive. Okay. So at least that's a very, very good thing. Okay. What I'm going to do today is this. Okay. So one is to take up all these 8 questions, go one by one, and cause immense misery and pain for each one of you. And we can spend the rest of the evening today here. Rather, what I'm going to do today is slightly different. I'm going to try and explain certain principles and concepts. Okay? And based on that, we'll try and see where we arrive to answers based on these questions. That will ensure that we have some amount of definitiveness with respect to where we are going. And some tools for us to be able to use not only in this case study, but in other areas also. That's a better way according to me. What do you say? Instead of, I will go through all the questions, but what I will suggest is that we will spend the first 15-20 minutes putting certain ground rules. And then from there we can take it. What do you say, guys? With your permission? Of course, this permission I already have, so there's no problem. This area of naturally bundled, or I would say composite supplies, or multiple supplies, is going to be a bread and butter for us for the next 20 years. And therefore, it's an area which requires a certain amount of analysis, and it's also an area which is like a jelly. Okay? We hold it in one way and we go somewhere else. Highly fact specific, it will change from place to place, fact to fact. Simple things will make huge differences. And to complicate the fact, being substantially a transaction-based levy, every contract, every transaction has to be looked at uniquely to determine what are the implications with respect to that. Therefore, the easy answer to start off by saying that there are no rules, nothing. You look at each of the transactions individually and you make a decision this way or that way. Just like a toss of a coin. Okay, but that cannot be the basis for us to be able to prepare and advise clients and people. Therefore, we'll try and build certain principles to start with. And you'll be surprised. There are some inherent principles when it comes to these cases of composite supplies and multiple supplies. I'm not going to use the word bundling and not bundling or naturally bundling or unnaturally bundling. Because I have my own reservations with respect to how we use these terms or abuse these terms. So I'm going to talk about things called composite supplies. Composite supply is basically a single supply which has got multiple elements of multiple services. Okay? That can be naturally bundled, that can be unnaturally bundled. And then I'm going to talk about multiple supplies, which is multiple elements being supplied distinctly and independently between two parties and understood to be in that manner. Okay, so multiple supplies and composite supply, according to me, is a better label to use and better way to analyze these transactions rather than talk about it as naturally bundled or naturally bundled. Okay. That's my first start. We'll see how the thing goes as we progress. The first thing that I want to tell all of you is that making a decision, whether it is a composite supply, i.e. a single supply, or a multiple supply, is a question of law. Extremely important what I am saying is a question of law. It's a question of law which allows a judge or a person to decide in appeal or in higher courts what should be the implications of service tax. It's extremely important, we keep missing it. It's not a question of fact. Okay? Therefore, these are not cases where because commissioner or tribunal decides in a particular way, that is a fact which is being decided, and therefore that cannot be changed in higher courts. It's going to be a question of law, and therefore these are going to be analyzed based on legal principles to be able to come to a final conclusion. And therefore, these are also cases which you can take on appeal to higher courts and will not be denied on the basis of a question of fact and not a question of law. It's an extremely important thing. And there is a direct judgment of British Airways in the UK, which specifically says that determination of whether it's a composite supply or a multiple supply is a question of law only. It's a 1977 case, 1990 case, 1990 Simon Tax case 643. It's a Court of Appeal case. Extremely interesting case because it's going to be one of the important cases for us to analyze this. I'll tell you a little bit about this case. Okay? There are a couple of interesting cases that we should all know. Correct now? We should know a few interesting cases. If a lawyer is going to speak, it cannot be done precedence. Case law has to come. Better to get it early rather than late. Better to get the case law early in the picture rather than late in the picture. This British Airways is a very interesting case. It's interesting for the reason that air transportation in the UK was exempt. Okay. And all the problems of bundling, non-bundling will only be cases where there is going to be a differential rate between two services in some way. Where the rate is same in 99% of cases, whether it is bundled, not bundled, how it is bundled is going to be totally irrelevant. Our entire practice with respect to this bundling is only going to be in the areas where there are going to be exempt supplies, partially taxable supplies, partially exempt supplies, and taxable supplies. And a combination of these, whether it should be treated as taxable or not, is going to be key. So our entire focus in the next 2 hours is going to be with respect to those supplies which are going to be a combination of this, where there is a difference in rate. This may of course continue in GST, for example, the rate of tax for goods and services are different. But that's a problem that we will not discuss today. There are a few cases which are slightly landmark cases that we should all know. Not because it's easy to use but handle, but these are principles I believe will be of universal application not only in other countries but in India also. And to some extent, some of these cases have been taken, and if you see the way the circular education guide expresses certain things with respect to that, it is verbatim taken from certain UK cases, especially car protection plan is verbatim extracted in one of the circular of 2008, which explains about single supply and multiple supplies. British Airways is a very interesting case in that air transportation in the UK was exempt. Correct? And catering services was liable to full tax. Catering service liable to full tax. Air transportation not liable to tax. Question arose that when you went from, say, London to Manchester, which is considered to be a mid-level kind of flight, you paid for the ticket. That ticket basically comprised of you to be able to travel from London to Manchester. It also entitled you to a free meal on the flight. Entitled you to a free meal on the flight. And tax officers across the world are the same. Okay? So they all came and said that this free supply and all is very nice, but you actually have to apportion the value of food from the value of the ticket, and therefore these are two distinct supplies, and therefore please pay tax on an appropriate value for the food portion. Being catering services, liable to tax. That's the entire dispute. Sounds very much like India, right? Ultimately, we learn the British all of this. So the tax officer said that you British Airways have supplied two services, an exempt supply of air transportation service and a taxable supply of catering services. Please apportion the catering service and then please make the payment. In this context, for the first time, when the courts, I won't say first time, one of the important times when the court had to decide whether catering services are liable to tax as air transportation services itself or not. I want to ask a question to myself, since I am not allowed to ask any questions to them. I'll put a question to myself. catering required for the purpose of being able to provide air transportation services? Not again is good enough. Is catering required for you to be able to fly a plane? Certainly not. Therefore, the tax authorities are to make the point that this is not essential or ancillary to the actual transportation of air travel, and therefore these are distinct supplies and therefore liable taxes. Please see this very carefully. They say catering is not essential for you to be able to provide air transportation services. Therefore, we believe these are distinct supplies and therefore not liable taxes. At the tribunal level, they actually won. The commissioner actually won at the tribunal level and held that these are distinct supplies, apportionment should be there and tax should be paid accordingly. That's what the tribunal gave. This is reversed by the Court of Appeal. Extremely important case, reversed by the Court of Appeal. They say that it is not necessary for something to be ancillary or incidental for it to be considered to be a single supply. What you have to really see is in commercial reality, what is it? And they took certain things. They said that the price charged the ticket was irrelevant whether you actually had food on the plane or not. You charge 100 rupees, you go by this plane, you will get the food. If you refuse the food, it's not you can claim refund. I did not eat the food in this plane. I got my own food, my tepla was there. I do not want this. You take this back, give me my I think all our Gujarati friends will relate to this very nicely. Correct? You can envisage them on the ticket counter. Vociferously say that I got my own food, I don't want your food, return my money. They said that the quality of the transportation also differs from flight to flight. In some flights, you might only get a biscuit. It's a short flight for say half an hour. While if it's a long haul flight, you may actually get a 3-course meal with all the cutlery and everything. Therefore, what they said, the test should not be whether something is incidental or ancillary or necessary or something, but what actually has been contracted for and whether the level of air transportation services is increased or reduced based on the food being provided. Okay. And therefore, what they came to the conclusion is, if something is integral to be able to achieve a certain level of air transportation service, which requires you to provide food at different levels based on different things, and you do not have a choice to be able to remove any component of it, and the price does not vary whether you have food or not, in those scenarios, we are going to say it is a single supply of air transportation service and not distinct supply of air transportation service and catering services. So it's an extremely important case because it says that two supplies are bundled naturally together, even though one is not incidental or ancillary to the other. Both are required for you to be able to enjoy air transportation service at a particular level. It's an extremely important case. In deciding this, they say very clearly that deciding whether it is a supply, a composite supply, a single supply, multiple supply, it's a question of law, and you can be this can be decided by the higher courts whenever you go on appeal with respect to that. Therefore, you cannot be said it's a question of fact decided by the tribunal at the lower level. Therefore, I will not take on this issue. So, it's an important case for laying down the principle, apart from the fact that it is a question of law. That something which is integral, which is not ancillary or incidental, can also be forming part of a single supply or composite supply. The second aspect that I would like to take is this case of car protection plan. I'm sure all of you are aware of this case. This is one of the most discussed cases, especially from a UK perspective. And it is also something which has been extracted verbatim according to me in the budget circular of 2008. If you see the budget circular of 2008, certain language which has been used very, very clearly. Car protection plan is a seminal case which decides when something is considered to be a single service and when it is considered to be multiple services. Facts are simple, providing insurance services and non-insurance components. The question is whether I need to bifurcate the non-insurance component and pay tax on it and claim only exemption with respect to insurance. Again, a combination of exempt and non-exempt supplies. Here the court says that we are first going to presume all supplies are independent and distinct first. Thereafter, we will analyze to see whether some of them have to be clubbed because they are actually single supplies from an economic point of view. That is, a supply should not be split merely because they are distinct, where from an economic point of view they are considered to be one single supply. Air transportation service, one single supply. You should, from an economic point of view, you should not split it for the purpose of deciding whether it is considered to be two supplies or not. And they also say that something is principal service and something is incidental and ancillary if they are able to come to a conclusion that other services are required for you to be able to better enjoy the main service. Okay. So you have a main service, you want to better enjoy the main service, then in that scenario you are going to have other services which go along with it to be incidental. My main service that I want to enjoy is insurance. Few other things I want to do, for example, I am giving additional services. Those are only going to better enjoy my insurance service. Then it is considered to be the ancillary or incidental. That's a test. They also recognize the fact that the word that is most crucial for our purposes is the word integral and not incidental or ancillary. Okay. They say what is integral for the purpose of providing the service is going to be part of a single supply. What is not integral is not going to be considered for the purpose of this thing. So that's the most crucial aspect with respect to this. We'll come to this when we look at the individual questions, but keep this in mind. The next most important concept according to me, which we always make mistake, is please don't look at the price or the way pricing is done to determine whether it is a bundled service or not. A lump sum price does not mean it is a bundled service. Two separate line items and separate charges does not make it multiple services. Okay. So the most crucial aspect is you should never analyze a transaction from the fact that it's a lump sum price being charged and therefore you consider this to be a bundled service. You can have a single price but provide distinct supplies. And you can have multiple line items where you price each component and still be considered as a bundled service. We at least know one case has been decided on this latter aspect, correct? At least one case we know. We just had the recent case of Jet Airways and Kingfisher Airlines, where the question of whether excess baggage should be considered as air transportation service or transportation of goods by air. That is passenger transportation or transportation of goods by air. We only argue, there was a difference of opinion, went to the third member has finally decided in favor of us. The crucial thing that we argue is that mere fact that I have a separate line item for excess baggage does not change the fact that it is part of a single supply of air transportation, because it is not as if the goods when they are part of my ticket are considered to be part of passenger transport, and the half of the bag for which I pay the excess baggage becomes goods by transportation by air. So you have to give some economic reality and commercial reality to it. What effectively we said is that in a situation of excess baggage, where you have two line items, one for the purpose of a ticket and one for the purpose of your baggage, still it has to be considered as a single supply of passenger transportation. That makes sense, right? Certainly excess baggage, when you are going to go, your purpose is that you want to travel by air. You'd like to have clothes at the end of the journey, so that you want to change. But therefore it is part and parcel of your intention to travel by air, becomes part and parcel of this. But the crucial aspect in this is you are able to charge two separate line items and still be considered as a single supply. That's the most crucial aspect. Therefore, please do not look at whether a lump sum price is charged or a lump sum price is not charged to decide. It may be a factor for you to determine. I'm not saying you discount it completely, but please don't go by it fully. One of the reasons why we put that was because we don't want you to think that something is naturally bundled merely because something happens in a particular way or priced in a particular way. A more crucial aspect is What in effect is the commercial reality of a transaction and how business is done in the industry. Please focus on that. Please do not focus on things like single price. Please don't focus on multiple prices. Please don't focus on what you say. Please look at certain aspects that are commercial realities. We'll come to some aspects of commercial reality in a minute, but most important thing is this. You are better off asking questions as to what a person in the industry is likely to do and what he is likely to agree. He may say something totally different in the contract. Please don't look at the contract. Contract is important for a contract-based agreement, but what effectively what we are trying to say is what is the real bargain between the parties and how is the bargain achieved. So if in the industry the practice is to have different services provided by different people, a freedom is provided for you to be able to procure services from different people, there is some genuine contractual freedom being provided to you, then merely because one person is supplying it under a lump sum price does not make that to be a single supply. Okay? So you have to really go back to effectively seeing what is the commercial reality of the transaction, the industrial transaction. So some of these things is extremely crucial. The other aspect which is extremely crucial, though the Indian case today, some of them are against us at this point in time, or at least one is against us, is that even in a scenario where multiple supplies fuse together to provide one component supply, if these multiple supplies are provided by a distinct person, then they cannot be bundled. So, two people providing services, let us say freight and custom clearance, are naturally bundled. That is, if one person provides it, it's considered to be naturally bundled. Minute two people provide that service, then it cannot be considered to be naturally bundled. It has to be considered distinct supplies because there are two distinct transactions happening between two distinct people. It is possible for you to break up naturally bundled services into two aspects. The most crucial aspect is this. Okay. So the bundling aspect will become irrelevant when two services are provided by two distinct people. It will only be relevant if one person is providing service to another and is providing a bouquet of services to decide whether it is bundling or not. Two suppliers, there can never be bundling of services. That is the law. And there are some cases decided abroad as also in other countries, especially there is a case of Delhi West, which is a 2005 salmon tax case, 481, and there was also of Colin Grove, I think somebody had mentioned it in one of the listeners. So these cases specifically say that where there are multiple suppliers, then effectively speaking, there can never be fusing of supplies. Supply is basically one and one and the same. That's the most crucial aspect with respect to how you want to determine with respect to the transaction question. So far, so good?
Yes, sir.
So
we are saying yes, sir.
You are saying yes, sir, for that? Yes, sir. Okay. With this, let us look at the questions that we had done. Then try and see what factors. There are some of these factors which we wanted to bring in when we are going to discuss these issues. So I want to take, for example, the first question. I must say, I was very happy the way you had all gone about analyzing this. Though some aspects maybe opinion of mine may be different from you, but these are cases that are going to be having multiple opinions. You are always going to litigate. The advantage that I have is that actually with respect to some of the points that I am going to say, I have some criticism. May not be Indian, but I have some case law to back what I am saying. Therefore, I will make a slightly better video. That's because I have more time to prepare, not anything else. If you see case study 1, ocean and air freight are definitely not liable to tax. There is no question about it. Okay? World over, we don't try and tax what a transaction happens between two countries. Generally, when the freight is going from India abroad or from there to India, we don't, generally it is considered to be included part of custom value of the goods if anything is required, and therefore some tax is being levied on that. So So we leave that aspect, whether it is right not to tax freight when it is going from India or coming to India at this moment. This is not RRC for that. Correct, sir? Today RRC is not for freight. It is for bundling of freight. Correct? Or bungling of freight, whatever, whichever way you want. So please see this paragraph 3. Generally, you see, S company generally shows charges towards freight and other services separately if the invoice is raised from the customer. According to me, that's the most crucial aspect. It gives an indication of what is the practice in the industry and what's the commercial reality with respect to this. To some extent, you have to imagine what is happening in this transaction to be able to come to the correct answer according to me. My sense is, even though multiple services are being provided by A to B for a lump sum price, my sense is that is not naturally bundled service because these services are not considered to be provided generally together in that industry. And as a matter of commercial reality, it is likely that the person will go to the cheapest person in the industry to be able to procure those services, and there will be some amount of contractual freedom to be able to do so. Even those who charge lump sum prices are going to be comparable to the shipping industry which is fraught with all sorts of competition. And therefore, you are likely to find in these kind of cases that the general understanding of the customer and the freight forwarder is going to be that these services are not provided as part of ocean freight, but in addition to it. Therefore, the commercial reality underlying this should not be looked at from the base that I have charged a lump sum price, but from the fact that this line specifically says that the normal thing to do in this industry is to charge separately for services and separately for freight, in which case they are not considered to be naturally bundled merely because the same person is providing all these services. That's the first aspect. Therefore, please don't get misled by the fact that a lump sum freight is being charged for the purpose of freight. Okay. The second thing is, the more crucial aspect according to me is the second and third question which I have. Now that we have come to the conclusion that they are not naturally bundled, what's the implication of that? What's the implication of that? Implications will change in Indian law slightly, in foreign law slightly, so you have to be careful when you read the case law abroad for the purpose of coming to an answer with respect to this. Why would I say so? Why would I say so? If you take a foreign law basically only makes a distinction between single supplies and multiple supplies. It says that if something is incidental, integral or ancillary to a particular supply, the entire thing will be bundled together and provided as a single service and a single rate to apply with respect to that. It says where they are not bundled together, then the suppliers are considered to be independent and distinct and each will attract the rate that is applicable to it. Correct? No problem. In India, however, we have a slight variation. In that we say that where you have tried to bundle services are not naturally bundled, that is, multiple supplies which cannot be bundled together, you have bundled them together, then the rate that I will apply is the highest rate among all of these things to the entire bundle. Therefore, effectively what they are saying is, you charge a lump sum price for two things, they are not naturally bundled. Because they are not naturally bundled, but the multiple supplies, but you have tried to bundle them together. Therefore, we are going to charge rate which is the highest among all of this to the entire time. According to me, there is a contradiction in this itself. I find it very hard to be able to say that something which is not naturally bundled, which effectively is multiple supplies, can then be deemed to be unnaturally bundled. I mean, it's very difficult for me to accept that something which is not naturally bundled has to be multiple supplies only. You are probably trying to say that you are trying to bundle this because you have a lump sum price. According to me, the test that something is bundled or not should not be based on whether it is a lump sum price or not. It has to be there. My sense is that 66F3, which talks about where it is not naturally bundled, has got very limited application, is likely to be challenged in multiple scenarios. You are better off splitting those transactions and saying this part of the transaction is liable to this rate, treating it as multiple supplies, and what is not naturally bundled, you apply the rate which is applicable to it. My sense is, therefore, you will not be able to, you should not bring in this concept of 66F3 to be able to say that I am going to charge highest rate of tax on something which is exempt from freight. Say, for example, 100 rupees is what is for freight, and for the purpose of getting this custom clearance. Custom clearance is 14.5%. That amounts to 1% of the value of the entire lump sum value. 99 rupees with respect to that. Merely because you have charged lump sum price, you will effectively put 14.5% the entire amount. Okay. My sense is you cannot do so because 100 itself cannot be decoupled, should not be decoupled merely on the basis of lump sum price, because 100 cannot be bundled at any point of time. There are multiple supplies. Once they cannot be bundled, there can be no question of unnatural bundling. Once there is no question of unnatural bundling, there cannot be a single rate applied with respect to all of them. So there is a contradiction in the law itself. We will see how to get over that effect. Right? But the crucial aspect of the next question is, what are the implications if some but not all the components are considered as naturally bundled with the freight? It seems to suggest, therefore, some components are naturally bundled and some components are not naturally bundled. Correct? In which scenario, if you go by 66F3, then you have to apply the highest rate with respect to all of them. Therefore, Therefore, you are better off not having a lump sum price when it comes to naturally bundled services or unnaturally bundled services. You are better off having a breakup which is going to show some portion which is towards naturally bundled portion and some which are not naturally bundled. So you are always going to run the risk of having to litigate a case where you are going to have a lump sum price with respect to this. Though, as I said, mere fact that a single price is charged does not mean it's a single bundled service, and mere fact that multiple prices are charged does not make it up as multiple services, it can still be a single service. So please keep that in mind.
Actually, although a customer only charge lump sum price, any companies for the purpose of accounting debundle that price in their books of accounts. Can that be used as a basis to say that these are multiple services, not one tax?
Very good question. There is a direct decision which is in your favor, at least with respect to this. There is a case of American Express. I will take 2 minutes. Very good question. It's a UK decision. It's a decision by the Court of Appeal or High Court of them. It's an interesting decision for a reason. They give an example which is quite crucial about it. The issue in this case is whether a single supply can be broken up into multiple supplies merely because I have procured these supplies from individuals separately. I will give an example. Today, everything will start in abstract, finish in abstract, but somewhere between, we will try and speak something in the language of commercial reality and substance. Correct? Since you are not allowing me to ask questions, they are not answering any questions.
So faculty is incomplete.
Acha, you are giving one extra start further.
The faculty is incomplete, sir.
I'll give an example. The example is taken up in this case specifically is, let us say I engage a builder. I am Badrinath. I want to build a house in Aamby Velly next to Krishnan sir's house. Correct? Allowed, sir, Krishnan sir? Allowed.
Far off, no place next.
No place next to you.
There is one big hill, about 10 acres.
No. that I cannot afford that right now.
It has to be befitting LNS, no?
No, sir. Befitting LNS, but not Badrinath at least. So the crucial thing is, I engage a builder to be able to build a house for me. I say I want a house just like Mr. Krishna's house. Beautiful wooden house I want. Nice place, same floor plan. You don't have to do anything extra. I want this very same thing given to me. Okay. There are 2 ways I can contact the builder, correct? The first thing is, I tell him, Bhaiya, I don't know anything about this. I want to sit in Bombay. I am going to give you this one contract which is going to allow you to build this properly and give it to you. One single supply with respect to this. Okay. What's the second way in which I can do? Second way in which I can do is I can tell the builder that you will procure tiles from this person. This client of mine will give you tile. This client of mine will give you marble. This client of mine will give you wood. This client of mine will give you. And therefore you procure from each of them. And then effectively what I am doing is I am contracting the builder to provide me discrete services with respect to roofing, discrete services with respect to foundation, discrete services. In this scenario, in the first scenario, I've got a bundled service of construction service. In the second scenario, I've got distinct supplies of each of the discrete components. So in this scenario, I've got the same house. The first example, I got a bundled service. Second, I got multiple supplies, each of them attracting their own rate of rise. Next question is, which is crucial to what Prashant was saying is, this builder, the first example, I have given to builder A, Yash is a very good builder. I have given to Yash that you will build this house for me. Yash in turn goes to Atul, to Babin, procures roofing from him, procures so on so from him. Then whether the supply made by Yash to me will be considered as a single supply, or because he has procured it from multiple sources, therefore it should be considered a discrete supply, because effectively he subcontracted roof to Bhavin, he subcontracted the flooring to Virendra, he subcontracted something to Manda. In that scenario, the question that arises is whether it is still a supply of discrete services or not. That is, in his books, if you see, he's basically got one payment being made to Mandar, one payment being made, but ultimately he's providing one supply to him. This case says that it is still considered to be a single supply of building services to me, because we have to look at what my customer is. The customer who has received it has contracted to get one building done. Merely because the sources are distinct from which the builder has procured these goods and services and supplied it to me doesn't change the character of it being a single supply. Therefore, pushing that to your or extrapolating to your question, merely because I accounted in my books as under A, B, C should not make any difference. If I am able to procure the goods from separate sources and still be able to make a single supply to my customer, then the crucial thing is what have I and my customer agreed for the purpose of being able to procure the goods, and where the industry reality and commercial reality allows for this. Please be clear that the biggest challenge that we have in our current practice is not the contract, but what is not written in the contract. The biggest challenge is you look at a contract, very well drafted by very good lawyers, it will cover every aspect, but the person will do something diametrically opposite or different from what the contract says. So you have to constantly look at what the commercial reality of the transaction is and the contractual reality, and then make a judgment based on that. Industry does it in a particular way, the contract says completely different. You have to be very careful with respect to how you are going to come to a conclusion. Because ultimately, the real contract is how the commercial reality is going to be. Obviously, if you are able to prove that effectively I have contracted in a particular way to be able to get multiple services in a bundled manner, then it will go to it. So you have to go to that. But the most crucial aspect is, please don't forget the commercial reality aspect of it. And a supply does not become discrete set of supplies merely because they have been procured from discrete sources and have been accounted in the same way in my books. Okay, Prashant? It's an American Express case, it's a 2010 case, so you can all look at this for this crucial aspect of the case.
But there's a third scenario.
Tell me.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Don't take all this trouble, I'll just give you my place.
Sir, there is no fun in just taking the place. You have to build some climax to it before you are able to do so. So we'll do it in this. Question number 3, therefore, again has an implication. Merely because I've charged separate services or separate line items, again should not deter you from deciding that it is not bundled or not actually bundled or not bundled at all. Okay? Therefore, please don't look at the individual line item for you to decide whether supply items. Then look at the contract and the commercial. That effectively what I want to say. Now the answer, if freight and other charges are provided, are naturally bundled, still provided by two separate suppliers. They are considered to be not bundled and you have to charge separate suppliers. So for example, if freight is exempt, custom clearance is exempt because it is provided as part and parcel of freight, but by two separate suppliers, then the fellow who is doing custom clearance will charge service tax of 14.5% and you will not be able to get the benefit of exemption for freight for this person. Correct, sir? Makes sense?
Come again? I didn't get it.
No problem. The last question to this is, assume for example that freight and custom clearance are actually naturally bundled. That is, custom clearance is incidental to freight. Because freight is exempt, I am able to claim that this is part and parcel of freight and therefore the same exemption for freight should be applied with respect to custom clearance also. Assume for example I have given that service, then certainly it is exempt. But assume I have given the freight portion and Yash has given the custom clearance as part of one right transaction. Where he clearly provides that supply of custom clearance, I clearly provide the supply of freight. We are together providing supply to you. Then, whether you can claim that you will not pay Yash 14.5% because Yash has been very naughty and claimed my exemption. Because if Badri had given both of them, I would have claimed it. But Yash has given one which he would have otherwise got if he was part of me. But because he is separate, whether he can be considered to be a separate supplier. The UK jurisprudence on this clearly suggests that even if it's a tripartite transaction, if there are two suppliers of naturally bundled services, each providing distinct supplies, then the two cannot be combined. His supply has to be charged at 14.5% and only my supply will be charged at 0. He cannot claim exemption of my freight on that basis. However, there has to be however, it cannot be so simple. I argue a matter and lost on matter in the tribunal, which has come to haunt me many times. It's a case of Muttaqul, it's a reported judgment. It was decided, I think, order was written by then member Mr. T.K. Jain. So we all understand what that means.
Yes, sir.
Okay? You understand what that means.
Yes, sir.
This is a case where an Indian company had entered into a letter of intent with a company, which is a Chinese company, branch in India, or a Chinese company representative in India. So a Chinese representative in India entered a letter of intent for a supply of boiler and for installation services. Correct, sir? Supply, I wanted a boiler in my factory and I wanted to get it from China. So I entered a letter of intent to the Indian representative. Letter of intent is not a contract, please note. Following the letter of intent, there was a clear contract between me and a Chinese party for supply of boiler and me and the Indian representative for supply of installation services. Yeah, he said he will provide installation services and that fellow said he will provide me with boiler. On the boiler, goods were imported, customs was paid on the full value of the boiler, no problem at all. He provides installation services to me, he is paid tax on election commission installations, and also he is paid tax, there is no problem at all. What will Indian Tax Authority, our great service tax department say? All this is very nice here. But you had a letter of intent. Our letter of intent basically said that you will enter into contract the representative, you will enter into contract with the party at a later point in time for supply of boiler and installation services. That you are paying election commissioning charges, you have not included the value of the boiler. Because this boiler is something which is part of the letter of intent, but you have tried to get away from payment of tax by structuring the contracts contrary to the letter of intent. That is, my actual contracts are in a particular way, but the way the letter of intent is worded looks as if I am supposed to, this fellow in India is supposed to supply this. We argue all that is very good, apart from various arguments of works contract, election commission, and all of that. We argue that, sir, where there are two suppliers who who are distinct. Whatever you will do, you cannot add the value of his supply to my services being provided. Correct? It is ridiculous to expect me to be able to pay the tax for the goods supplied by somebody else. However, I may like that fellow very much. You may be like Yash, I may like it very much. But still I will not pay his taxes. Correct? I think not a single person in this room will be happy to pay taxes of another from his pocket. Correct, sir? Rajesh, sir? At least not in this room. The code somehow, by some esoteric, probably spiritual way, they were able to find that this letter of intent is of such great importance that we are going to ignore the contract and deem that the value of the goods is to be included in my value for the purpose of payment of tax and gave some relief in the form of abatement for the amount of custom duty being paid. Some goofy this thing they gave. We are not concerned with how the court decided that. But the most crucial aspect this court decides, which is contrary to this court seems to suggest that even where two separate suppliers are providing services, one person's supply can be added to supply of another for the purpose of the tax purpose. Okay? Therefore, while in the UK, you have the case of Televest, Conclave and all of those, to suggest that if two suppliers are there, you cannot bundle. Indian position, at least today, in Mumbai tribunal, seems to be slightly different. Though we believe the case is not right and is likely to be overruled in the higher court. But the fact of the matter is today we have a direct judgment in India against you on this point. However, we will advise always the parties that if two separate suppliers have come together, please don't claim an exemption of one for the purpose of supply to one. So that's the most crucial aspect of this. Clear, sir? No, not clear. Not happy.
The citation was there.
We'll WhatsApp it. Facebook it. CTC is extremely good at IT, sir, so we will go that way. So second is a very interesting problem, sir. How many of you agree second is an interesting problem? All of you agree second is an interesting problem. The second had two separate aspects. From what my discussion with group leaders were, that I always envisaged that there were two answers possible. I was surprised there are more than two answers possible with some other transaction that has come out. We will not discuss each of these questions, but we will come to this in a minute. Sir, I would like to say that this is not a theoretical question. First, this is actually a case which came to us, brief for opinion, which we are given an answer. Okay? So this is not something which has been booked up first. Okay? So this is, as I say, sometimes life, what is it? Facts are stranger than fiction. That kind of a thing. So this is actually, this is not fiction. This is fact. Okay? We actually had a client came and asked us this question. Therefore, I took the benefit of passing it on to somebody who is more learned and more interested in trying to give an answer to this. Facts are clear in this. There is a fellow called Talkative. Talkative provides radio. Airtime is not required. He collects monthly rental charges and pays back on this. So, first question is whether a VAT is correctly payable on that. I was honored in one of the group discussions to say that before we even look at this question, you please tell us whether this aspect that VAT is correctly paid is to be challenged or not challenged. Correct? Naresh, I'll put the question to me or to this thing. To which I answered very gullibly and in a very sober manner that you can look at all aspects. And then thereafter the discussions went off in all directions. Thankfully, I was not in the middle of it. I was only a spectator, otherwise I would have been totally finished in that group itself. We'll come to this in a second. According to me, here again if you see clearly, there is a supply of radio from Talkative to Yash. And we put Yash today, Yash is our guinea pig, okay? Where he's going to really suffer at my hands. I was expecting Mandar to sit here or Yash to sit here. One of whoever was going to sit here was going to be in trouble. First thing is, sir, in this scenario, when I give radio to him and I get monthly rental from him, possession and control has been transferred. There was some doubt whether control is transferred because I will switch off the airtime and therefore I will be able to not make it work. According to me, that will not be a test for control doing so, because if that was a scenario, even if I bought a handset outright, if I make sense switch off the airtime. So that is not the test for control. The test for control is whether any fetter is there on where I can go and how I can use it. And since there is no fetter, there is effectively a transfer of radio from me to you. Therefore, possession and control has been transferred from talkative to this thing. So at least this part I want to clarify. Okay? Therefore, some portion of this VAT paid is correct. First. Okay, there has been a transfer of right to use radio equipment. Therefore, VAT has been correctly paid. Question is whether VAT has been excessively paid or not. One set of people said, what is the great thing about radio? Everything now is in the waves only. Therefore, airtime connectivity is more important than radio this thing. Therefore, the principal supply in this case is airtime and therefore not anything else. Sir, first I want to, crucial thing according to me in this, to analyze a problem like this, is to first try and give some effect to what the contract is saying. Okay, and effectively. I brought the GPS aspect specifically to contrast with the first aspect. GPS aspect, when I get a GPS, I am not interested in GPS. But for the tracking services that I receive from GPS. Okay, the second aspect of this, here again on GPS I supply, I pay monthly rental with respect to GPS and I receive various reports and tracking and so on and so forth. I am really interested in the tracking service. I am really not interested in radio services provided by him, I am more interested in the radio. So most crucial aspect is, the first aspect of the problem is I am more interested in receiving the radio and be able to do whatever I want with it. If I am in a small radius, say for example, the radio is in this facility, it is small enough for the radius for the radio to be able to catch itself, airtime is not required. Therefore, the crucial, according to me, the crucial aspect is the fact that it can be used without airtime, or even if it can be used with airtime, it's an additional service. The supply of radio independently, according to me, is an important transaction in this. Therefore, supply of radio cannot be considered to be incidental to airtime first. It might be in other situations, but in this scenario, radio is not incidental to airtime. Radio dominates in its own respect first. Now that we've got the radios back out of the place and we know it is this. Next question is whether airtime is incidental or not. Airtime is incidental or not. How do you decide that? How do you decide whether airtime is incidental or not? Any guesses? At least one question I should be allowed to ask you without boundaries, because boundaries only for them, not for you. Anything according to you will be able to help us in being able to come to this conclusion that that effectively speaking airtime is incidental or ancillary or in any respect crucial to this.
Sir, even this given case study, airtime is incidental and given free. Because you want to use the radio effectively, for the effective enjoyment of the radio, this airtime will be given free. So, for example, cab driver, if he put the petrol, in his cab, he is providing the services of the rent a cab only. I am not concerned whether he puts the petrol or diesel or that. Here, the airtime have been given free for the usage of the radio.
Okay. Very good, sir. Very good way of analyzing this problem. I will analyze slightly differently. I will tell you how I will analyze this transaction. I will say airtime, I won't say it's incidental or ancillary. I would say it's a distinct supply being made from him to me, because according to me, these are not a single supply of radio with airtime incentive, because I am able to procure airtime separately from somebody else. One of the most crucial aspects to decide whether it's a single supply or multiple supply is this concept of genuine contractual freedom. This word genuine contractual freedom is not my wording. It's actually a wording reused in the UK with respect to bundled services itself. There is a case decided by DCJ called Telemer, T-E-L-L-M-E-R, which is a case of 572 of 2002, decided by DCJ. There was a supply of a building and maintenance services provided by the landlord. Okay? So I have given the building on rent. I have also provided maintenance services to this person and cleaning services to this person. Supply of land was exempt, cleaning services taxable. The landlord wanted to argue that I will be able to claim the exemption of supply of land with respect to the cleaning services and maintenance services also. The ECJ said nothing to it. And the reason why they came to the conclusion was because cleaning services will be procured from some other party, maintenance services will be procured from somebody else. Therefore, landlord is effectively acting as two separate persons when he is contracting in this respect. And therefore, you are able to consider that there are two distinct supplies. In this scenario, since I am able to use the radio without the airtime is not integral to the supply of radio 1. It is not incidental or ancillary also because it is not required for it to operate. Further, I have full contractual freedom to be able to get airtime from somebody else, and therefore it cannot be considered to be a single supply of radio with airtime. They are two separate distinct supplies. Implication: if service tax has to be paid, then you have to apportion this monthly rental against airtime and rental and pay tax accordingly. It's a crucial aspect. So, in all cases of bundling, you have an aspect of valuation. It's not going to just talk about bundling. Once you come to the conclusion airtime is a separate supply, then you have to come and give a value to it. There is nothing like a free supply of airtime in all of these cases. Whenever somebody gives you a Cadbury chocolate along with a TV, that does not mean Cadbury is come freely. The value of Cadbury is ingrained in the value of TV, and you have to apportion if one is taxable and one is not taxable. Please don't get led in by the client coming and telling you that I have given this as free. In this world, there are no free lunches. Certainly not today. Correct? I have to learn also today. Unless I give a lecture and talk to you, then only I get my lunch. Correct, sir?
No, you will get up. Even today, you will get every day.
That's every day. So the crucial aspect according to me is, please don't get led in by airtime is given free or something is given free. If there is a bundling of goods and services being provided, you charge one, don't charge the other. It is not a free supply. Please take this out of your head. It's not a free supply. And if they are taxable at different rates, then you have to apportion. And as you know, Supreme Court has held in income tax cases, difficulty in apportionment is no bar for you to be able to not pay the tax. Coffee plantation is there, other cases are also there. So the most crucial aspect that I would like to say to all of you in this is, airtime is not incidental, not integral, not incidental, and therefore should not be considered as part of a single supply of radio. It's a distinct supply. Once the distinct supply, then please separately charge service tax on that and mail it. Of course, there is another aspect to it, whether you can claim the excess tax paid in VAT against the service tax liability. In that respect, in sales tax, whether there is a confusion between whether I paid central sales tax or I paid local sales tax, Supreme Court has come and said there should be an adjustment allowed between the states. Okay? There's a case of KH Costa, decided by the Supreme Court, which clearly lays this down. Punjab and Haryana High Court in our service tax matter has allowed for adjustment between VAT and service tax. So, to that extent, you should be able to give relief to your client saying that if he's paid excess tax on the 3,000 rupees on the monthly charge, you'll be able to get some adjustment. Whether you'll be able to actually get the refund from sales tax, give it to service tax department, that किसी और के हाथ में है, not in our hands. But legally, this is how it is going to turn out. Correct, ma'am? Till law 5. Good. So talkative was this. Now, if you see the last aspect of talkative, was on this GPS unit. My sense is GPS unit is actually provision of service. Okay. There might be a transfer of goods and services. Sorry, I should step back a little. The supply of goods and supply of actually sale, transfer of right use goods, supply of tangible goods for use, and services using goods are a cause of confusion for years and years and years and years and years. I'll give an example. I am in a shipping business. I need a ship to be able to provide the shipping services. Do I have control over the possession of a ship given to me? I should have.
You will do the chartering, sir?
Let's say chartering. Let's take for example, I've chartered a ship. What I want to take out as a distinction for the sake of time and I will shorten this. Please don't see a transaction ending with the goods. Please see what is being done with the goods. I charter a ship, I receive the ship, I have full control over the ship, but I use it for the purpose of mining. My customer is not interested in the ship, he is interested in receiving mining services or shipping services from me. Therefore, even though I have control, possession and I have transferred that to my customer for the purpose of being able to do so, the service that I am providing is shipping service and not supply of tangible goods for use. Okay? Therefore, in this aspect, even though I have transferred GPS to you and we have full control of possession, I am not interested in providing this control of possession. I am really interested in providing a service to you, which is of tracking services. Please don't stop with the supply of tangible goods for use aspect. Please go further. We are actually providing service using these goods, and the services are crucial. Therefore, in this aspect with respect to GPS, what is crucial in the service tax aspect and not the sales tax aspect. Payment of sales tax in this case will be wrong. So you have to go beyond what the goods, where the goods end. You have to see where the goods are being taken for the purpose of using the goods in my own way, or the goods are incidental for me to receive some services. There are several cases of this which are going to arise. So please, most crucial aspect is merely because I paid back a monthly rental does not mean that the person is interested in receiving goods for purpose of not tangible goods for use. That's the most crucial aspect. This is what we want to cover in this part of the conversation. I think I'm going slow on the goods, but we'll case it.
Conceptual subject, you are really a proper perfect.
Thank you. Third is a very favorite problem for me. You know why? Any guesses? Third is a very favorite example of me. Okay? At least this one I will be able to confidently answer. Few cases where I won. So this is a case of Murali Yadav and Nagarpatna. Okay? A case where it's a very interesting transaction as usual. Transactions are happening in Pune and other parts of Maharashtra. Fellow actually owns a property, leases to somebody else. Charges renting, pays renting a new property on the lease rental that he receives. The department says, your rental is 1 lakh rupees. You've taken 1 crore as deposit. That deposit is kept with you for 5 years. Because the rental is for 5 years. You have earned notional rent, interest on this deposit. Therefore, now please make a payment of service tax on that notional rental that you have earned because you were able to retain this great work, excellent work. Department is really innovative. You must give it to them. First they find a transaction like this, then they find a way to harass you, then they find a way to issue a case against you, and then for you to be able to then hire a lawyer to be able to defend. What was certainly not a case to start with itself. So we will have benefited this entire course of this innovation. The crucial thing in Bhagavad was, and this is extremely crucial, this is something that we had a discussion for some time when we were arguing this case, which does not come so clearly. The judgment is this. There are more things, as I say, Raghuram also said, more things said between the judge and the lawyer than what is written in the judgment, which is more important to determine what exactly happened. In this case, they had a security deposit. The department was not able to prove any link between the amount I charge as my deposit and the variation in my rental. That was the most crucial aspect. The department had a shoddy job in its investigation. If they had gone, we were able to show that I take 1 crore as my deposit, I charge 1 lakh. I take 50 lakhs as deposit, I charge 2 lakhs. I take 10 lakhs as deposit, I charge 5 lakhs. There is some variation happening in the deposit which is being varied based on the listing. And if you are able to make out the interest at a certain percentage is compensating for the increase or decrease in the deposit, then certainly there is a link between consideration and supply. Then you can do all these interesting things you can come up with. But merely to say broadly that there is going to be there is a deposit on which no interest is charged and you have got the rentals at a particular value, you have not been able to establish a link between the supply and the consideration, and therefore that consideration or the value cannot be added for purpose of services. Therefore, in this case, 30 crores is a refundable deposit which is interest free. This notional interest cannot be added to the value of the rent. Okay, therefore not liable to tax assessment. Assume, for example, they are able to get something. Question has to be difficult. No? There is no point in giving easy questions. Right? Difficult questions is more interesting. Assume they are able to get a link. Some beautiful, brilliant tax officer is able to find a link. Now what interest will you charge? So, for purpose of determining the value, consideration value. Is it the normal interest rate which is charged by banks? Or, like somebody said, interest rate charged by some department itself 30%. That, or you want to charge what the bank is able to get, or you want to charge what you get. What is the rate that you apply?
Government apply on different 6%.
Government 6%. वो एक बहुत बड़ी बात 6% is very very big. So what will you give? What will you apply as a rate? Is it the bank rate? Some other rate? So that question of value is a big question mark. Certainly it is not service tax department rate on us. Correct? That 30% is definitely out. Not 80% also means the department proposes. I think in this country I don't think anybody now earns 18% interest except for credit card companies. We had an interesting case where one credit card company came to us and said we have to challenge this 30% interest. I said, you uphold that levy. You charge 24%, 30% interest and you go and challenge that, definitely not, out of this rule. So we don't want to bundle up for other services, other places. So again in this, the interest has to be what would be reasonably charged by somebody in my position, if I am able to take it. It has to be find these valuers and there are enough people who are able to come up with this. But certainly we want to what a bank will charge. It has to be seen from my perspective because it ultimately comes down to what the customer is able to charge and what the customer is able to want. That's realistically your endeavor in service tax is to be able to come as close as possible to what the actual transaction should have been. That is, the actual interest that you have post possibly be able to apply and then be able to come to that also. Okay? It cannot be some general interest component. You have to try and get into that portion of what you have actually earned. In a similar person, you have capacity if you have lent one or with the interest you will be able to charge. So this is effectively what I am saying. Similar principles, according to me, with respect to interest will also apply to corporate guarantee, but slightly different. There is a slightly different aspect when it comes to corporate guarantee, which I want to highlight. Okay? It's less of a valuation issue, but an important issue. Where a person a person makes a supply and does not charge for a supply and considers it to be free, okay, to somebody else. Such a supply, which is considered to be free within the aspect of a transaction nature, may still not be challenged as being liable to tax in somebody else's hand because they got a benefit, if I am also deriving a benefit from it. Please understand what I am saying. I gave a corporate guarantee on Yash's behalf. Yash is a young man coming up in my company, so I believe he will be able to make a supply, but the banks are not comfortable with him. I am providing a corporate guarantee. Generally, a bank guarantee will charge Yash a percentage for that. I do not charge that. They say I have provided a service to Yash, and therefore Yash should pay. I should pay tax. I have received this money effectively which I have foregone, therefore I must pay tax with respect to this transaction. It will be fair to say, if only this transaction of Yash and I were there I was receiving some supplies and I was getting benefit, only this benefit. But if I am going to get some benefit from somebody else because this transaction which Yash is also benefiting, then this transaction of free supply cannot be challenged. I will repeat it again. Okay? Please bear with me. In a corporate guarantee, it is not that only Yash has got the benefit of being able to get a loan or being able to get some benefit. I am also benefited because Yash has benefited. Therefore, this corporate guarantee which I am giving to you on his behalf, that he will correctly supply the goods or will do the transaction properly, is benefiting Yash, is also benefiting me. Once some aspect of this transaction benefits me, it cannot be considered that only Yash is benefiting and therefore Yash should compensate me notionally for this. Therefore, in corporate guarantees, when I provide corporate guarantee on behalf of my group company, and my group company is not charged for this corporate guarantee, because I am also receiving benefit of this corporate guarantee, I am not liable to charge service tax on this supply. Truly, in some respect, a free supply and a supply which is not liable to tax. It's really not a supply to him, it's a supply that I am doing for my own benefit. Okay? That's a crucial aspect with respect to corporate guarantee that we need to be keeping in mind. Okay? Clear, sir? Let's move to the next case study. This case study is an interesting case study. Okay. Some aspects of it were something that we faced a few years ago, but some aspects are totally fictional in this. So I think this is like a movie. Okay. So not all aspects of this are something which is existing. So we have tried to bring out certain aspects in this which are again very crucial. I am not so much interested in question 1. Okay. Question 1 is a subjective thing, total combination of not. I am more interested in question number 2 and 3. Okay. Portion number 2 and 3. And there is an interesting reason why I am more interested in question number 2 and 3. Because I am going to tell you a very interesting case of auto lease by ECG. Again, today I am going to discuss only foreign terms. Correct? I have just come back from outside India. Therefore, I am very, very inspired to only share foreign judgments with you. Correct? No? None of which you can use. If you will have to come back to me for an opinion, which I will certainly help you in procuring and providing. Okay, so there is no problem with that.
Nobody is ready, so they could not argue with you, sir.
Correct. So, lawyers only fight in areas where he knows he will win. Correct? Correct, no? Correct. There is no point in going into a fight when you are going to lose. Correct? You should only fight in areas where you are comfortable. Other person should be uncomfortable, you should be comfortable. It's the best place to be. We'll discuss the case of auto lease. It's extremely important. Why I want to bring this aspect is, many times we have this case of there is a supply from A to B, but it is routed through C and comes to me. Correct? In this itself. I want a cab. Cab company is providing the service of a cab. But somewhere in between, court has acted as a person who has facilitated this transaction, not an intermediary. Question is whether it should go be a supply by a cab to the hotel and hotel by me, or a supply of cab services to me and facilitation services by hotel to me. It's the most crucial aspect of it. Okay? The payment aspect is also something linked to that. I'll only take 1 minute. This case of hotel is an extremely important case because it's one case where they have ignored contractual arrangement and gone to commercial reality. What is this case of hotel? It's very interesting case. All companies want to hire top line, correct? Revenue increase concern. Therefore, what they do, what really agency services they invoice to them, and what is really output agency service also, they invoice as a supplier of goods. Question is, this is a case of a company called Auto Lease, who was in the business of fuel management. Very good. Fuel management, exactly what we require in this country. What he will say is, Auto Lease will give you a card, credit card. Charge a nominal fee with respect to that, on which he pays the tax. He says that whenever you want to buy fuel, you use my card, my credit card to buy the fuel. But fuel is not bought by you. I will buy the fuel on your behalf. Therefore, I go to a petrol pump, I use the card. Appellant, that is Auto Lease, will make the payment for the fuel to the petrol company and will charge me for the fuel through the year, effectively speaking. What they do is, they make a distinction between what is the transaction between me and him and what's the transaction between him and the company. He says that you pay me on an estimated basis the amount of fuel you are going to have on a monthly basis. Therefore, we are going to remove the risk from you. I will buy the fuel, I will sell the fuel to you. You pay me on a monthly basis, whatever according to the estimate. At the end of the year, we will adjust. End of the year, we will adjust. If you have used more fuel, then you pay me extra. If you use less fuel, you don't adjust it, you will take it from me. Or I will make an adjustment for the next year or whatever. Therefore, effectively, fuel is bought, fuel is sold by appellant, and the service fee is also for the purpose of management of this entire scheme. Service fee is also charged. He wanted to take input credit with respect to various transactions which is there because in the UK, financing transactions are considered to be exempt supplies. Correct? Finance transactions across the world except India are exempt. They don't tax financial transactions at all. Why they don't tax it is because it is impossible to determine what is the amount of consideration for the services that you have provided and the services you have received. You go to a bank, you put money in a bank. Do you pay service fee for them to provide banking services to you? But you get interest. That means you have provided actually services to him. Correct? Obviously, you have provided services to him. He has paid interest to you. Therefore, but you have also received banking services from him. Correct, sir? Netting off nature. I put money in the bank, I get interest. He is providing bank services to me. This is like a Brahmin coming to your house. You feed him and you pay him money also. Generally, restaurant mein jaoge, so you pay and he feeds. Brahmin coming to your house is the only situation where he feeds and he earns also. So that's why Brahmin's always been top of this thing. So now we are suffering from those sins or whatever it is. But the key thing is, Brahmin and bank are similar. You put money in the bank, you receive bank services, you receive money also. The crucial aspect of this is that effectively speaking, if you have earned 10% interest in the bank is not some stupid person. You should have earned 14% of interest and paid 4% of interest for banking services to him. And that has been netted off. And he is giving you back 10% effectively speaking. Therefore, there is a supply by you to him, supply of him to you. You are not able to make out what is the net off. You are not net off. Very extremely crucial. Countries for 50 years have not been able to figure out what is this net off, which is between the customer and the bank. And therefore, they say because we are not able to determine whether it is 12% minus 2%, 14% minus 4%, 13% minus 3%. This 10% we are not able to determine whether it is there. Therefore, we will not tax the transaction at all. Therefore, financial transactions are not taxed across the world because they are not able to determine what is the consideration in the supply of a financing transaction. That's the aspect with respect to foreign countries. India, of course, we will first tax financial transactions, we will see what happens. Bank will come back to it, we will figure out. That's one aspect of it. Why I brought this? If auto lease was doing a financing transaction, they will not be liable. They will not be liable for the purpose of making the payment of tax. They will not even take input tax credit because exempt supply, as you know, there are 6-3 reversals, similar reversals there are other countries also. So the crucial aspect was, auto lease therefore came into the scheme of buying fuel, being able to take entire input tax credit and selling fuel. The court saw through this. The court saw through this and said, there is no supply of a financial transaction, there is no supply of there is no fuel being bought, auto lease and resold. There is a supply of fuel directly by the fuel tank to the customer and you are merely financing the transaction. And they came to this conclusion on the basis that auto lease has nothing to say with respect to the quality or the quantity or the use of the fuel which is being bought by the customer. Therefore, on these aspects, it fails to be the person who effectively bought the service and supplied the service. Therefore, they said, we are going to deem this to be a transaction between the fuel and this, and an exempt transaction of financing between auto lease and this. Why I am saying this is, please be careful whenever you are requesting for a cab from a hotel. The hotel is providing facilitation services to you for which it may charge some fee. But there may be a supply of the vehicle by the car owner to you directly, and for which a separate tax is charged by the car owner to you directly. And the fee that whether you make a payment to the car owner directly or to the hotel may have certain implications with respect to that. Certainly, if you are making a payment to the car owner, it's a direct supply to the car owner to you, and he is merely a facilitator. But if you are making a supply, making a payment to him, and then he in turn makes it may still be considered as a supply of car by the car owner to you, with him merely being a facilitator, having certain implications for income tax in certain cases. That's going to be the most crucial aspect. So this case is more interesting for this part rather than for other things. Of course, convention center bundled or not, basically generally, where for example you take a convention center for a conference, it is considered that the hotel accommodation will be bundled to it. Next question is, what should be the dominant part of it? Should hotel accommodation or convention services? Answer is, you choose what you want. No problem at all. Because there is no definitive answer based on the current facts that I have provided. One aspect, however, a very important factor for determining whether there is bundling, which should be the predominant thing, is the relative cost of the different components. Okay? So where, for example, certain aspects are more costly or much more expensive as compared to other components, then the predominant intention is to take those services. Therefore, if you are taking a convention hall and hotel accommodation forms 80% of the fee because you are only taking a hall and rental, okay, then it's likely that you can argue that I am really taking hotel accommodation services and convention center is incidental. Okay, so there is an aspect to that because they may not charge you anything for this hall if you are able to take 100 rooms. Therefore, really hotel accommodation is what you are interested in, being able to come to a place like Aamby Velly. They are more interested in staying and enjoying the evening than listening to speakers.
Always come for that only, sir.
For enjoying the place. So you may be able to argue that hotel accommodation, because the cost, the relative costs are much, much higher. Therefore, you will be able to, and you will be able to treat this as a transaction of a transaction of hotel accommodation. Similarly, other aspects will also fall in place based on that. Again, you be careful. If you try and bundle something, hotel accommodation you've taken this. In addition, you are bundling other facilities which are not naturally going to either of them. The abatement for hotel accommodation will be lost because of the unnatural bundling of services. So please be careful with respect to that aspect. That is the last question which I want to pose in that problem sheet. Clean developers may